Welcome to this episode of the Cyber Consulting Room podcast. I'm your host, Gordon Draper, and today we're diving into the world of cybersecurity conferences, specifically Black Hat USA, B-Sides Las Vegas, and DEF CON, which colloquially called Hacker Summer Camp. These conferences were held 2 weeks ago from this recording date, and that was roughly the start of August 2024, and they were held at conference centers around Las Vegas in Nevada in the USA. Joining us today are two experts in the cybersecurity field, where each of them are from different disciplines of cybersecurity, the offensive and defensive sides. Our first guest I'll introduce is Edward Farrell. He's a seasoned offensive security professional who runs the consultancy called Mercury Information Security Services and has a background in vulnerability hunting, penetration testing, and red teaming. Ed also as a goon at DEF CON, a role that requires deep understanding of the hacker community and their tactics. Welcome to the podcast, Edward Farrell.
Thanks, Gordon.
Our next guest is Shanna Daly, a renowned incident response and defensive security expert who's currently working with COSIV. She's also been instrumental in protecting organizations from cyber threats. Shanna has been involved in the Black Hat community as a mentor to speakers at Black Hat and a member of the Call for Papers review board for Black Hat Asia, providing her with valuable insights into the latest trends and research in cybersecurity. Welcome to the podcast, Shanna.
Thanks, Gordon.
So I'm going to start off by asking, it was 2 weeks ago that we've just come back from Las Vegas in the USA. We've had B-Sides Las Vegas and Black Hat USA and also DEF CON. So if for each of you, what are the skills that have led you to become a mentor for people within the cybersecurity community? Ed, would you like to go first?
Yeah, absolutely, Gordon. And once again, thanks for having us on the podcast. It's always awesome contributing to all the content you've been generating and building out for the community to support them. So your question was what led me to doing mentorship in this space, and it's peculiar, right? This was my first year mentoring a speaker at B-Sides Las Vegas. I also have kind of done a few ad hoc things internally to Mercury as well, and this was a very unique opportunity that Sandy Clark, Mouse, who's over in the US, and was in fact my first run-in at DEF CON 19 almost 14 years ago. She convinced me last year to put in and be a mentor this year. So what's led me to that space? Look, I'd say the last 15 odd years of working in this industry have led to I guess you could say that consolidation of knowledge and that desire to give back a little bit. I think my own journey through conferences and the conference scene has gone from sort of that initial couple of years of uncertainty and self-doubt to, hey, I'm actually quite confident to, okay, now that you're at a certain point in your professional career, what are you getting out of these events? And sometimes it's very much a case of, well, what are you putting into these events? And, this year, I think the reward for me wasn't necessarily gaining knowledge or imparting it as I have done in previous years, but mentoring a brand new speaker at B-Sides, but also supporting my own team who attended DEF CON. In the case of one of my staff, first time traveling overseas, just creating an environment that allows and enabling them to go to a place that inspires and motivates the training and education and even the intellectual curiosity that keeps a lot of us in this domain was fantastic. So I'd say what got me here, there's a lot, but definitely what keeps me here is that opportunity to contribute and give back, especially given what I've had, what I've taken from the conference scene and how that's enabled me in a lot of my disciplines throughout now well over 15 years in the profession.
So you've been going to Vegas for 15 years?
Going to Vegas
14 years.
14 years. Cybersecurity for at least 15. I've kind of lost count. But yeah, I would say my first real cybersecurity conference was RuxCon 08. It's actually, if you have a look in the back here, the badge I maintain, where is it? about up there, RuxCon 2008. First conference I went to, and it blew my mind away. And that has just led to that personal drive to keep going back to events such as this. So yeah,
Very cool.
in 14th DEF CON, 12th in attendance. So yeah, it's been quite an odyssey.
Shanna, how would you describe how you what skills have led you to mentor speakers within the Black Hat community?
Well, I'm not sure how many skills I have in order to do that, but it's funny. I think, I don't think RuxCon was my first conference, but definitely one of my first in terms of a hacker scene conference, giving me that taste of what it's not like to go to a corporate conference. I think prior to RuxCon, and I think RuxCon that I went to must have been in around 2010. It might have been the last RuxCon that was had. 2010 was when I went. I think it might have been the last one, or there might have been one after that. But prior to that, going to conferences where everyone's dressed in suits, I can dress up, I can do all of that, but it's really not me. So going to RuxCon where they're up on stage with a beer was just mind blowing, right? They're talking to these people and everyone's got all of this respect for them and they're so knowledgeable and you're talking about these amazing things with a beer, in shorts and a t-shirt. So I guess it gave me that like perspective that not everything needs to be down that corporate avenue. And my work in that previous 10 years. So I've been working in cybersecurity or information security since 2001. And I guess prior to that, it was very corporate. Everything was, I had to dress the part, I had to look the part, and I've never been able to look the part. I started in information security, I had black dreadlocks. I've always had piercings. I have a big tattoo. So I never really fit the mold of being in that corporate infosec place. So going to somewhere like RuxCon, it was like, I found my tribe. These are my people. Regardless of whether or not I was a hacker per se, everyone was super friendly, involving. There's always things that you can do. If you want to learn lockpicking or get involved in a capture the flag, everyone's always really like, yeah, come and sit with me and I'll show you and do that. So that kind of environment, just, where you feel so welcome in it, particularly when, even though it was an all-male environment, it was actually a much nicer all-male environment than being in those kind of corporate situations. So for me, it kind of led me to going to more of those conferences, particularly in Australia. So this is my first year to Black Hat and DEF CON over in Vegas to Hacker Summer Camp, which I'm now going to be calling Hacker Winter Camp for all us Aussies. But I have been involved with Black Hat Asia for the last couple of years, and I have been a speaker coach for Black Hat US for the last 2 years as well. And, one of the things that I really enjoy about being a speaker coach, I'm a speaker coach for B-Sides Melbourne locally as well. And I'm sure there's another one that I'm probably missing out on, but I wish that 15, 16 years ago when I started doing presentations that I had someone that coached me in this way. So I don't need to know everything about what that person is talking about, but that's great because most people in the audience won't either. So it's really helpful for someone, even if they're an experienced speaker, having someone that they can work with over a period of weeks before the event, like 3-4 weeks beforehand, to go through their story. Does this make sense? Am I giving you the sense of what I'm trying to tell and what are you taking away from this? So whether or not people are seasoned speakers, so I had 2 speakers this year for Black Hat US. One was a first-time Black Hat speaker and a fairly new speaker to the scene, and another was a very seasoned speaker. But both of them got a lot of use from that speaker coaching program, just because I could say, yeah, look, AWS isn't really my thing, but I get everything that you're talking about. So that's awesome. And also the other thing that people think about, especially when they're submitting and presenting at conferences like Black Hat, DEF CON, that they need to get up on stage and prove themselves. They need to get up on stage and prove how technical they are and look at all of this work that I did and here are my 400 slides and every piece of code that I've ever written. It's not what people are there for. They're there to hear your story. They're there to hear what you did, why you did it, what you found, and what they can learn from it. And if you have supplementary material, talk about your blog posts, you can find all my code on GitHub, all of those things. But a lot of people they come to the program with literally over 100 slides for a 30-minute talk. You can't get through all of those. So, just helping people understand what the purpose of the presentation is on the day. You've made it to Black Hat, you've made it to DEF CON. You don't need to prove anything to anyone at this point. The fact that you got selected is already a really, really, really awesome thing. Now you just tell your story. So now I get a lot of joy from doing that. And yeah, I wish that I think that the next time I go to present somewhere, I will 100% be getting myself a coach and doing exactly that. It has made such a big difference. And sorry, I know I'm talking a lot. Over the last 2 years, the quality of presentations at all of the Black Hats that I've attended have definitely improved because of it. It's been out of this world. So yeah, that also makes me feel really great. And then all of the points that Ed said around giving back, I've had so many mentors and people helping me. If I can do this, awesome.
That's very cool. So I started presenting when I was a graduate in 2007, and I got given a presentation course on how to present. And this was by someone that worked in show business or something like that.
Yeah.
And they gave some various advice on breathing and making sure you don't have too cold water, don't drink too much, all these sorts of little things associated with the actual presentation. Don't show too much on the screen. I think it was more keynote oriented. But I haven't, because I had that so early, I haven't necessarily gone looking for a mentor, but you've changed my mind. I should, next time I get the opportunity, I'll ask for a coach, because you think you're doing things well from the inside, but it's what other people see is, and a coach from that outside perspective can definitely help.
Yeah, and it helps to understand the audience as well. If you're a first-time speaker at a conference, you may not be aware of who's actually going to turn up. So having those speaker coaches can say, yeah, okay, this is perfect for the level of the audience. Or, at Black Hat, I said to one of the guys, no, you're going to need to assume that people have some level of understanding. So it gives them, you don't need to explain. You can cut 10 minutes of your talk explaining the basics. Let's make an assumption if they're coming to your talk that they know. So even around that, so it might not even be presentation styles, but yeah, it's a bit of a privilege just being able to be part of the communities too. I have so much fun at conferences. I think conferences have almost become maybe 90% of my social life. I'm not sure if I should be proud of that or not.
Yeah, go.
Yeah. I was going to say I'm very much the same. I mean, I think where I'm at personally, professionally right now is I think you also have a lot of these communities where a lot of the people empathize with some of the challenges that we all go through in cybersecurity. The ambiguity of the work we do, the uncertainty of some of the battles we face, and then even just some of the weird, wonderful, esoteric things that we can have a bit of a deep interest in, sometimes a bit of a laugh. People outside of the places we operate and where we live, eat, and breathe just don't get that space. And so the opportunity to engage in that, Shanna, is I think, really important. And I think it's been one of those things that will gravitate me to these places. So it's, I know what you mean about that. Hey, this is now a just as much a social thing as it is a professional and an intellectual curiosity.
Yeah, I just told some people today, and I think you probably understand. I just mentioned to someone that I have advanced ADHD capabilities, and I think it's probably the only kind of industry and place where you can say that, and people go, "Oh, that must be amazing," and I get it.
It's a superpower.
It's a superpower. Exactly.
Shanna, you visited Black Hat as well, providing the mentoring. Did you go to many of the briefings, or what sort of areas did you focus on while you were in Black Hat?
So I did get to go to some of the briefings, particularly the briefings of the speakers that I coach. So obviously had a big interest in them because there were topics that I now had become fairly well aware of. So, and one of them was a fellow Aussie, Jacob, out of Perth, who was presenting on his research on DocSpin. And I really can't wait for that to become public, because I learned a lot, and it was a very much an eye-opener around the kind of activities that the doxers are doing in terms to terrorize people, essentially turning up at their houses, hiring people that will throw Molotov cocktails in windows and things like that. So that was something that was, quite interesting. And although, he wasn't there presenting on a new vulnerability, for example, but he was presenting on the research of a particular sort of, I guess, a threat gang, or in this instance, DocSpin, which is the platform. So, while it was not, here's a new vulnerability, that was actually really amazing for me, because it opens up, this research is more in threat intelligence rather than, bug bounties and things like that. Where for me, I am interested, definitely saw some talks on that as well. But for me now, I'm sort of a little bit more interested in those, like the threat intelligence world, and, what threats are coming to us. There was a lady from Google Project Zero that talked as well, that talked about the history of Project Zero, and around that, the history of, I guess, ethical, and now I'm going to,
Research.
no, what's the word? Notifications, basically, like all of the 0 days that Project Zero has found, and all of the vulnerabilities that Project Zero has found in all of the different kind of software and hardware over the years. Disclosure, responsible disclosure was what I was thinking of. Basically, the evolution of that over the time of Project Zero, over the last 10 or 14 years around about. So that was pretty interesting as well. But honestly, one of the things that I told people in day zero, which was sort of the day before Black Hat, unfortunately for the speakers, all of the talks are recorded and are available within about a week or two after the event, particularly for new people coming to these and wanting to meet people and interact. There's a lot of community things that go on. So at Black Hat specifically, there are community events around the different tracks. So if you're interested in doing research in mobile, reverse engineering, AI, hardware, they actually had meetups for all of those different tracks. So you could go there, you could meet other people who submitted, speakers, review board members, focused on those areas, and make some connections that maybe, when you want to present next year, you can reach out and get some help. Or if you're new to the industry, maybe make some connections with people that have the same interest as you as well. So, it really does depend on where you are at in your career as to what you do at these conferences. And I do use them very much as a networking and a social event, but also a chance to make some new connections and, learn as much as I can while I'm there.
Ed, do you did some presentations in at B-Sides Las Vegas, and did you do one at Black Hat as well, or was it did you drop by Black Hat for a visit?
No, I did. I actually had a pretty full schedule for the 6 days that I was there. So I had a talk on Tuesday that I delivered, which was based on some of the research that my team and I have done on a product here in Australia that didn't quite live up to its name. On Wednesday, I got to oversee the speaker I mentored, and got a chance just to see him present, and yeah, that gave me really good feelings off the back of that. And then I spent Wednesday afternoon at Black Hat, both presenting but also walking around the vendor hall as well. So my talk at Black Hat was in my capacity as a director on the ISC2 Global Board of Directors, and just talking through things that we look at as a board when we start discussing artificial intelligence, which was a consistent theme across all three conferences of, hey, what are the things that we need to be thinking about in that space? I had a really good presentation with the CISO of ISC2, John France. We had a really good didactical approach of how do we approach this from two different lenses by two individuals who have existing cybersecurity expertise, and thinking through how does AI need to be considered at a board level, but then also at a manager level, and then how do those two elements interact, and then also interact. The SMEs are also a few rungs down, but also know a lot more than the rest of us. And I think it's been an interesting transition as well in my professional life of going into that space and some of the thought processes I now need to go through as I start to step back from being hands-on or as hands-on as I used to be. So it was it was a very much a whirlwind few days, and then on top of that, volunteering at DEF CON and also trying to capture and see all the things I wanted to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go on at DEF CON as well. So, what sort of themes would you say were coming out of the conferences? I was going to break it down into B-Sides Las Vegas is a flip side to Black Hat. Black Hat's a bit more, as I think Shanna was saying, academic in some regards, and also a bit more corporate with regards to the expo floor. While B-Sides Las Vegas is a flip side to that. It's like a hackers conference before at the same time as Black Hat. And DEF CON is the massive hacking festival. And the themes will be across pretty close to across all of them, but they'll be a bit more defensive with regards to Black Hat. I think there's some in B-side. No?
No, not at all. No, Black Hat tends to be a lot of research onto the offensive side. There is some defensive, but majority, I don't know for the US, but application security for Black Hat Asia this year was probably doubled in terms of the amount of research into application security. Obviously, AI as well, got a whole lot more AI, ML, got a whole lot more applications, but they actually had to start splitting up application security into multiple tracks in Black Hat Asia, and I'm pretty sure in Black Hat US as well. Research tends to be more in terms of what can I break more than. There is something called Black Hat Arsenal, and they are tool focused. So they're not briefings of research, but it does give people a chance if they've developed tools for either defensive or offensive purposes to demonstrate their tooling as well.
Yeah, I had a business pass to Black Hat, and so I went and had a look at some of the vendor halls, but also some of the tools in the arsenal. One of the ones that I stopped by was Cube Hound, which is a Kubernetes Bloodhound graphing and attack path tracing, which looked pretty cool, but it was still starting out effectively. It came out of Datadog, I think.
Yep.
It was definitely a very interesting skill set. But there will be defensive tooling and not just offensive tooling as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's some of the themes that you saw across Black Hat AI applications: security, offensive, defensive. Ed, you've got a background with Wi-Fi and hacking and RF hacking. Did you go visit the DEF CON villages and have a look around those areas?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's one of the really interesting things I see when I go to the US is they do cybersecurity very similar to how they play football, which is they have a team of 50 or 60 specialists. And so for me, the place I operate in is when I look at the work I do at ADFA in my teaching space, I look at Wi-Fi, I also look at IoT, I also look at mobile security, and in those courses, there's probably 3 or 4 other disciplines. And I go to DEF CON, and each one of those is its own separate village with its own separate themes and its own separate activities. Even a biohacking village, which 2 of my staff that attended managed to get admin privileges on one of the boxes in about 20 minutes, which was an undiscovered bug, which was kind of cool. But back on theme, it's the range of spaces that people are researching in and going into depth are becoming so much more expansive that if you look at the US space, people are going to real focused areas of depth and experience, whereas I think we very much play, as opposed to playing US football, we play very much AFL. It's only 18 of us on the field, and it's aerial ping pong. So it's a little bit more nuts, and we don't have that opportunity to go to the same level of depth. In terms of themes, look, AI really did take up a good chunk of a lot of the talks. However, there's also some really cool stuff in the aviation village and the red team village around space and space-based activities. I wouldn't be surprised if there's suddenly a space village in the next DEF CON at all. It is becoming a area of of interest, but I think there's also something to be said about, well, it's a few extra 1,000 feet above aviation. So, where they go to there, and even things like SCADA, ICS, and embedded systems, each one of those becomes its own separate space, its own separate activity. So I think it speaks to the depth of complexity that I think we are now facing across our industry, is that you now need these areas of expertise. You can spend 3 days in one of those villages, learn a lot, and get value for money out of your attendance. But then you don't see everything else, and it's one of those mental things that you have to contest with. Hey, I'm not going to see everything. I need to reconcile with that. And for me, that's been my challenge for almost 14 years of attendance, is accepting the fact I won't ever know everything. But anyway, those were the themes I saw. Also, I guess perhaps a very tangential thought on some of those themes as well.
I think one of my favorite talks on AI was actually on using AI for meaningful use cases. I am a little bit tired. It's very similar to when we first were doing the cloud, and I would go to talks, people saying forensics in the cloud, and you get there and they're like, well, we don't know how to do it yet. Thanks for that. Already knew that before coming into this presentation, and you've actually left me with nothing coming out of it. And a lot of AI talks are very, very similar. We've got all of these problems with AI, what about all of these things that we're going to need to consider? Okay, great. But what can I do with it now? What do I need to be concerned about now? But this was actually at the CISO Summit, which was the day before Black Hat. It's a different event, but part of the sort of the overall Black Hat week, I guess, where there was a presentation on building ChatGPTs, GPT bots to use in your security teams for varying purposes, from offensive purposes, researching vulnerabilities and how to exploit things, through to defensive, helping you build out tabletop exercises and things like that. So teaching people how to use it for something that will actually make their day-to-day easier. We're not going to be losing jobs to AI. Otherwise, we would have lost jobs to people who scripted, right? Like, we need these things to help simplify our jobs, because they're very complicated in many instances. So AI can help, but I don't see a large amount of talks that really talk about how AI can help us. It's really people going along that buzz chain of, AI, what are the things, quantum security,
You'll be doing all the things. Yeah, it's bad. Don't do it. And I think that was certainly one of the things that we talked about in our talk, is okay, how do you actually create the balanced strategy at the 30,000 foot view? Is how do you enable decision making? I think it's also an issue that we've long had with security, is we spend more time panicking or creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt, not helping. But I think in stark contrast, I mean, my experience was, and funnily enough, in the vendor hall of all places, I did feel like it was a little less, China's coming, or, insert anonymous, or someone who wears black hoodie like me is going to be all your problems. I think there was actually a better understanding of.
Exactly.
I think there was actually a much better understanding of threat environment and customer need in vendor hall, which, the person that likes doing independent work and also tearing products to shreds, seeing that was actually kind of nice. So yeah, I think to your point, Shanna, it's one of those things that we will need to be cognizant of as we start to evolve in AI, is how do we not turn it into a fear fest?
Yeah.
A blockchain buzz fest where it just turns into a bubble and nothing happens.
Yeah.
I like the idea that something will happen, but I was also, having seen blockchain and cryptocurrency, I've been a bit suspect as to what's actually going to happen with AI, whether it's actually going to cross the line into something useful and tangible.
I'm just going to say Web.
Yeah, I think unlike blockchain, there isn't, because it's not a cryptocurrency, there's not millions to be made from it, and hopefully we'll come to logical conclusions on practical applications without the waters being muddied.
Shanna, did you have?
Oh no, say? I was just being silly and saying Web3 just in case anyone was playing bingo at home.
So, what have you learnt from the threat intelligence perspective, from the different types of actors threat actors that could be coming in. What have you learnt from the research that's come through Black Hat, or the emulation perspective out of touching base with, I'm not with the community in DEF CON, and even we don't talk about what happens in these talks inside Sky Talks at and where it's not recorded. Is there anything new with regards to threat actors that's coming out, to the techniques, Ed?
Yeah, look, I think one of the experiences I had this year was it did feel like there wasn't too much by way of anything immediately groundbreaking. I do say that without having gone to some of the talks, without having gone to some of those talks, that I know I definitely on my reading list. I mean, that being said, I am curious, and I've got it on my to-do list, is HD Moore and Rob King's talk on SSH that was at DEF CON on Friday afternoon. I am keen to probably just look at that more from a technical standpoint, but in terms of threat and threat actors, I didn't really expose myself to that domain to the level I would have liked to this year. But once again, it's a time and space issue that you have when you attend DEF CON. Is you don't get
I'll ask Shanna, and then we'll turn back to the fact that there's 10,000 things you can do in Vegas and during every minute of these conferences.
Yeah,
Shanna?
I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of being in the review board, because I know for Asia particularly, the number of submissions for the DFIR track, the Digital Forensics Incident Response track, did go down in Asia. And we had a little bit of a conversation around it. And, there's probably a few reasons for that. And one of the reasons that I kind of called out was most of this research, it's a race to the beginning now, or the race to the front for vendors to publish. So most of the, what's happening and what we're seeing new in the threat actor space is getting published by Microsoft, CrowdStrike, Mandiant, insert vendor X, well before there is a chance for someone to actually present this at Black Hat or DEF CON. If someone is presenting it at Black Hat or DEF CON, actually at Black Hat, you tend to, if it's been published already at Black Hat, then it is very little chance that it will get on stage. Not sure around DEF CON. But, there was the War Stories track at DEF CON where talking about how people, I did see Thomas's talk actually online around, how they discovered this particular threat actor and the tools and the levels of sophistication. But I think we tend to see that most of that information comes out pretty quickly from the vendors these days, not so much from researchers in terms of, particular threat actors. There's a fair bit of money that's being made in the back end of threat intelligence now. So yeah, I didn't focus too much on seeing those kind of talks where I went. Obviously I watched Thomas's talk. I'm friends with Thomas, so I wanted to make sure that I, listened in. But in terms of Black Hat, I do like to try and expand my knowledge when I go to conferences as well, and not just go to talks where I know the topic, because generally I'm probably not going to get so much from it. Trying to go to talks where I'm not familiar with the subject can help me, have a little bit more, not breadth to what are the things that I might need to be worried about or concerned about, or, what else could I find interesting?
Going back to all the different streams that are occurring at Black Hat, and the streams that are at B-Sides Las Vegas, and all the villages in DEF CON, there's so many different disciplines and target areas to go and listen and learn. What kind of, how do you manage that from a conference going perspective? Shanna?
Sometimes I just go with the flow. I might create a plan, but it just often doesn't work out. I'm the kind of person, if I'm walking through, if I'm walking down the hallway and I see someone I know and they're heading somewhere, I may end up going with them. I do, there will be some talks that I have I don't want to miss these, but otherwise I let it go fairly fluid. What do I feel like now? Where am I going? What's on? Who else is going to different places? Am I, I don't need to be there with someone else, but sometimes it's a good opportunity to catch up or, take a different direction that I wouldn't have thought about going to that talk. But hey, you're going, maybe that sounds really cool. But as Ed said earlier, you can't see everything. So I do know that the talks are recorded. I can watch them online later. So it's more around me wanting to go to the talks that, one, that I might find entertaining, or two that are not recorded as well, that I won't be able to look at later, or go and see those villages or the different kind of community meetups, stuff that I can't do when I leave, when I'm not in Vegas anymore. To Ed's point, the industry in the US is, I don't even know how many times bigger than Australia. It's a really good opportunity to get out and see people that work specifically in these one particular area, whereas we have to be a little bit more of jack of all trades. They get to focus. So going and meeting and talking to or seeing these people present can be very, very eye-opening and also inspirational.
Ed, how do you manage the flood of cybersecurity ideas that go through?
Yeah, look, my first 2 years actually broke me because I tried to do everything. I tried to see everything. The tip and trick I tell everyone is pick one goal, achieve something in your time there. My goal this year was seeing a satellite hacking talk because, hey, this could be of interest to me. I also had a lower talk I wanted to see. As long as I saw those two talks, I achieved my goal. And then to Shanna's point, you'll just duck, dive, and weave around, and you'll find a few other talks that are interesting. There was a really good one I saw at B-Sides by a guy called Ira Victor, and it was just actually this is applicable to me in terms of reorienting how I do consulting practice management, and it's like I did not realize I needed to learn this. There was another talk as well on dealing with problems that you find as you start going through your data sets. It was actually, this really helped me clarify my thoughts over here. And then there's the 5 or 6 run-ins that you have in the hallways or your conversations, or at 1 a.m. in the morning, surrounded by a bunch of Australians, with a kangaroo in the centre of a table, where suddenly you'll have some epiphany of, hey, here's a research idea that I want to do and dive into over the next 12 months. And those are the key informal learning pieces that you need to be cognizant of as you navigate these environments and these things. But don't go in with a fully stacked schedule. I've done that before, and you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, I did that on the first year that I went. And then I think you pointed out, which was after the two of you have started, after you've been going to Vegas, Ed, I started in 2018, was my first year. So relatively recent. And yeah, you get I got the tip from you to just pick a goal, if that's. And this year I went to Las Vegas, and in in DEF CON, I went and saw the Blue Team Village and played in the Blue Team Village Capture the Flag for the Control Alt Detect, which is the Lima Charlie platform, which is an analytics platform. It's a spiritual successor to the OpenSOC. 1 year, I played the OpenSOC competition at DEF CON, and we had a few people, and we had to pick up a team over Twitter, and we had a few people from around the world. We had a team of 5, and we managed to reach the scoreboard and actually come second. That year, they were having a black badge for the competition, so we were a bit frustrated, but we got smashed by the official BlackBerry sock so we didn't stand a chance really. They came like a well-oiled machine. But that's what I've started doing, is picking and so I played for two days, I think, Friday and Saturday, and we gave up on Sunday because we were coming fourth, and there were prizes to the top 3. And the top 3 had sprinted off because I only had a team of 3 people each day total, and these teams were fully stacked with 5 team members. So we did well in the space that we were working in. But at the same point in time, I still went out to the conference talks afterwards. So at the end of the day of a full 8 hours or 7 or 8 hours of running detection analysis, looking through logs and SIEM analysis, I'd still go out and grab something to eat and then head off to the DJs or music playing or different parties. So it really turned up to the conference at 9 a.m. And then leaving at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or something like that. It's such a long day, and just to have 7 6-7 days of effectively Tuesday to Sunday. It's pretty full on. How do you manage your energy and keeping yourself going? I mean, they do talk about 3-2-1 at DEF CON, or maybe a larger number, but 3 hours sleep, 2 meals, and at least 1 shower. But how do you manage your energy and making sure that you get to the spend as much effective time the way you want to, Ed?
Look, I have learned some very terrible habits in my 20s of just powering through. But yeah, manage your alcohol intake is I think probably one of the big ones. I've seen a lot of people get too excited about alcohol at this event. So, know what your limits are, stay well below them. Lots of terrible food, lots of water, also electrolytes as well. I've also got a very terrible habit now of taking with me cold and flu tablets. For some reason, having those throughout the conference means that you can also keep your immune system up alongside immuno boosters, vitamin D3, K12, a couple of rockers. So I think I've got my stack down packed for that. And I've dodged COVID the last 3 years. So
I managed to pick it up just on the last day.
Oh, no.
I think I sat next to someone in the airport lounge that had it. And it just unfortunately, I copped it towards the end. But up until then, it was a really good experience. The conferences, etc. Shanna, how do you what are your strategies and techniques for keeping going?
I think for me, it's a little bit around experience. Just being able to keep going, maybe a bit like Ed, where but no, I started the week with 24 bottles of water on my desk, the dresser in the hotel room, and I made sure that I drank my allocated 6 bottles a day, if that meant that I had to scull water before bed. But it did give me a goal of making sure that you keep your water your water intake up, because you don't think about it otherwise. When you're walking around, you're doing over 25,000 steps a day. You might get a chance to sit down and eat. I went to lunch at Black Hat one day, but I don't even think I got a drink at the lunch area. I just got food. So yeah, making sure you're taking water. I do the same with the loads and loads of vitamins. And I tend to, in the afternoons, I do need a break from people. I'm that introvert, extrovert, whatever it is, where, I look like I'm really extroverted, but it takes all of my energy and I need to go and recharge for a little bit sometimes. So sometimes in the afternoon or before I go out, I'll take a couple of hours in my hotel room just to get some zen and be by myself and recharge the social batteries and then go back out. But again, I kind of think about it. I'm there for a week. It's over in a week. Just do it. Get everything in, do what you need to do, and recover later.
Yeah, I've only just started finishing off on the recovery now. Last night there was a social function I was at for a conference, a business conference I was at. I was like, no, it's 7 o'clock. I'm at 0 right now. I haven't quite recovered from the US. I do need to just sleep. And I slept for about 10 hours.
You've been at conferences this week, haven't you?
I was in Brisbane Monday, Tuesday. Today is Thursday. I just came back for another conference as well for one of the industries. It's been a full-on month.
Yeah, I don't think I've been out of the house very much since I got back, to be honest. Just recovering.
Yeah, and I think it's also, Vegas in itself is a sensory overload as well, and it's designed like that. But also, there's environmental factors. You've gone from winter to summer to winter over 6 days. You haven't given your body time to acclimatize.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I didn't really spend any or much time at all once I was in Vegas outside. So you don't really get to see sunlight. So I don't actually think that and because, going out, getting to bed at 3 a.m., I don't feel like I even overcame jet lag by the time of the end of the week. So, then coming back to Australia and then kind of having now reverse jet lag, but not having it. But it was all a little bit strange. But the fact that you tend to, I did leave the casino, but you don't get outside very much at these things. Well, because I was staying at the Mandalay Bay and the conference center was attached to the Mandalay Bay. So my walk was through the casino to the conference center and then back to my room. A lot of the events that I went to were in that casino or that area, or I met up with people down at the bar downstairs. I did get out to the bowling event, which was good fun. Where I saw you at, Gordon, that was great. But other than that, you don't really get to spend any time outside and vitamin D. So you kind of confuse your body. You're going winter, summer, winter, but you're also in like a dark. You're in the night for like 5 days or something. So your body does come back quite confused. It's a bit of a culture shock at the end. You're like, whoa.
It's almost like a dream.
Yeah.
You come back and you're like, oh, I've resettled now. But what was that?
Yeah.
That was just something else.
Yeah. And as I'm getting older, it's getting harder and harder.
So what did you think of the DEF CON badge? Did the badge for DEF CON was a little Game Boy emulator with cat ears that had LED lights, and you could do a whole bunch of different things to it. Did anyone follow up with what the badge challenge looked like? And Ed, you've been covering the gooning component, so you would have had your own version of the badge. What sort of what was special about the goon badge?
The color. That's about it. Look, I'll be honest, I have not played with the badge in any detail yet. It is on the to-do list. The badge is... Where is it? It's on the wall there somewhere. So it is somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Top. Yeah, so that is on my to-do list of things to do.
Yeah, so instead of leaving mine on my to-do list, I've actually donated it to a women's hacking group down in Melbourne.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I sent it down to Pamela O'Shea, and she will take it along, and so they can have some fun playing with it. Because the reality is that I'm not going to have any time. As much as I would like to, it becomes one of those things that sits on the shelf. So kind of fun.
You got to put it on the wall.
I know. Look, I've gone through a little bit of a, what's that Japanese woman's name? Konmari, whatever. Honestly, I've taken photos of things and I've just gotten rid of things because otherwise my life is so crowded that unfortunately I kind of let go of anything of physical sentimentality. If I can take a photo of it to remember it, great. Because otherwise, again, that reality is it's not going to go on the wall. It's going to go in a box somewhere and moldy, and I'm going to throw it out at some point. Anyway, I'm a cynic.
I can just imagine archaeologists one day digging up. Oh, here's this strange cat badge, the plastic device that when it has batteries and plugged in, does different things. And this is almost alien.
Yeah,
I'll be like, what was the purpose of this? This must have been, they must have used this for like great things. Nah, just got you into a conference.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? Like, there's half a dozen badges I've picked up over the years where it's just they've then been used for practical exercises, like the Wi-Fi Village badge from 2018. I managed to repurpose that as a directional antenna.
Cool.
The Embedded Systems Village badge this year is a glitching gun, which would probably come in handy with some of the testing that my team's doing.
Yeah, nice.
So, if you can repurpose the hardware, go for it. Unfortunately, a lot of it right now is ornamental for me, which is, hey, here's a cool background. It's like the wall for your PhDs, but it is a.
You've had to earn them.
Yeah.
Well, no, you turned up. You don't necessarily earn them, but they are pieces of intellectual curiosity, and they are works of art. So across a lot of these badges, people have put some heart and soul into them, and they're awesome, and hopefully they can educate and inspire a next generation.
Awesome. Ed, you've been volunteering with DEF CON as a goon. What sort can you talk a bit about what it means to be a goon and what role that you play in the DEF CON environment?
Yeah, no, look, so this was my 11th year as a volunteer. I kind of got dragged off the floor on my third time attending with like, hey, we need help, you interested? So lo and behold, I started volunteering. What that eventually evolved into the role I do there, I guess the best way it's ever been described to me is fun enforcement, which is to say your job is to make sure everyone's actually having a good time. They kind of know where they're at and what they're doing. I think in previous years, especially if you look at some of the older editions of DEF CON, especially if you go back probably even pre-September 11, there was a very different culture and a very different attitude amongst attendees. I think in some aspects it's still kind of been there, but a lot of the conference scene has evolved over the last 15 years. Like you go back to the old RuxCons and KiwiCons, it was a bunch of white guys in black t-shirts, and I think we've certainly leveled up over the years since then. So a lot of it is very much about, hey, is everyone comfortable? For a lot of people, I think coming to an event like this, it can be intimidating. So how do you make it fun and engaging? And so it's now less about a smashing head sort of thing, which I think has been a common misconception, more about all right, how do you make sure it's an engaging event? I think DEF CON has probably gone down an interesting path in terms of it's opened up just beyond some of the old internet memes that you used to have, and it's now a couple of different bits and pieces around how do you have that engagement with a much wider and a much more diverse crowd. And then there's also just some of the safety aspects as well. So I mean, the team I work in, I wasn't on shift when we had the bomb scare last year, but there's also been instances of people who have fallen terribly ill. I had last year a guy who was completely dehydrated and disoriented. So, and also I don't think had eaten for about 20 hours. So there's also that aspect to it as well. But, I think I had a few low points during the time volunteering, but, most of my time there the last couple of years has been great. Yeah, and we also, one of the volunteers decided to wear a very large chicken costume, which was entertaining.
Yeah, I think you get given you got a patch or something like a badge type patch for over 10 years of was there a special event or a ceremony or something of handing to the
Not
here you go, you're one of the other 20 people that
there was a very interesting ceremony and a firm handshake. But, that was it.
They didn't make you have to find it. Hey,
No,
you've got an award, but it's hidden somewhere in the conference. Here is your clue. Yeah.
For the next few years, what sort of areas within the hacking festival of DEF CON or the exploit development, etc. of Black Hat, where do you see the innovation and future going over the next few years in cybersecurity in these rough areas? I mean, you can highlight a discipline or highlight a learning. Where do you think it's going to go?
I think the obvious is any kind of mobile device, whether that's IoT or, a cell phone, for example. Like, I don't know, I think my phone now has a terabyte hard drive in it or something. I've just got a new phone. Like, my phone is probably more powerful than many people's computers. So definitely the talks at Black Hat, mobile devices was also one that increased a fair bit during the year too, in terms of the number of submissions. But as we're, Ed was talking about all of the different IoT hacking spaces as well, biohacking, all of the security devices that we're using as well. Satellite hacking, there's satellite hacking, capture the flags these days. So we're definitely moving away from enterprise devices and back, I guess I was going to say back, but into more of the consumer areas, cars as well. I think there was one of the talks either at Black Hat or DEF CON on, using capturing the tire monitors and things like that. So all of the different devices that we're getting, the autonomous driving, things that are affecting people every day. Like, it's actually really good that we're getting all of this research because we don't want the safety of everyday people to be put at risk, right? If you buy a car and it's got autonomous driving, you don't need to, or you shouldn't need to be a cybersecurity expert to know if something's going to go wrong. So I think those things are going to get more frequent just because we're using them more frequently.
I think we're probably going to see, I guess, what I would call a consolidation. Like, we have all of these areas that are no longer groundbreaking research, but it's now how do we start reapplying it and rethinking through it and evolving those disciplines. Within that, I would also say we're going to see different contexts and different use cases, especially at a grander scale. I think we're going to see more geopolitical events and discussions stemming from that. I think we are also going to see more what I would call more cognitive sort of issues. So how do we deal with I think for me, cybersecurity is always that intersection between the digital physical and social space. And I think we are only just touching the surface from a human standpoint, which is to say you are starting to see some of the first generations of our cybersecurity professionals start to retire. We're seeing a consolidation and a growth and move into higher positions of leadership with our next generation. We've now got this new evolutionary generation that hasn't had to do the tactile initial learning that I think a lot of us have had to do, where we've had to build our own computers from parts we ordered from a mail order catalog. And now a lot of those knowledge bases and that more sort of hands-on learning environment has changed. And so what does that do for our people? And then what does that do from a human exposure standpoint of, all right, what do we need to be thinking about when it comes to things like social engineering, where it be at a small scale or across the entire country? Those, I think, are going to be some of the bigger questions that will be evolved and discussed at these events.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for sharing your time today and discussing where we've been with Las Vegas Hacker Summer Camp or Hacker Winter Camp. And I'd just like to thank Ed Farrell for your time and sharing what you can about the space at DEF CON. And thank you, Shanna, for sharing what you have about Black Hat and mentoring and some interesting ideas as to where the future is going to go. So thank you very much, and we'll call it a day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon.